Let's talk right now about events over the weekend in Israel, particularly the rescue of those 4 hostages held captive for 8 long months, including, of course, the hostage who I think almost one of the faces of that horrific event of October the 7th, and that was the hostage Noah Argamani, a 26-year-old abducted from the Supernova Music Festival by Hamas fighters. She was found in a civilian house, the house indeed of a journalist in Gaza, but the firefight involved in the rescue of her has led to condemnation from around the world of Israeli forces. But why? They were doing the job they were sent in to do: rescue Israeli citizens from Hamas terrorists. Well, let's talk about this with Jackson Hinkle. He's an American commentator and influencer, host of The Dive with Jackson Hinkle, on Rumble, and is currently speaking to us live from Moscow. Good morning to you, Jackson.
Morning. I'm curious why you left out the fact that Israel murdered 3 of their own hostages in this extraction, including 1 American citizen.
It has been claimed by Hamas that this is the case. The IDF have denied that. And why would you use the word murder? Do you think they deliberately went? You think the Israeli sent the IDF forces? They went, do try to deliberately kill Israeli hostages. That's an incorrect use of that word murder, which has an actual meaning.
Well, we have confirmation that an American tourist who was in Gaza was actually killed in this. So whoever killed them, I guess, might still be up in the air. But I'd imagine, considering the fact that Israel killed over 270 individuals, injured 700, that they're also responsible for killing the 3 hostages.
Well, again, you say Israel killed. No. You say Israel killed. We
There's
don't
no
know.
Reason to interrupt
Hamas, which is a terrorist organisation which is responsible for brutal rapes and murders and tortures and the like, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, may occasionally lie as well, Jackson. They have claimed, as they often do, a huge number of deaths, and of course they're always all women and children. We have no way of verifying the number of deaths or who they are. Certainly, people were injured. Certainly, some of them were civilians. They were women and children. However, whose responsibility is that when Hamas opened fire on the Israeli forces rescuing their people?
Well, it's a great question. Just the day before this extraction mission took place, Israel rejected another United Nations motion for a ceasefire that would have guaranteed the release of all the hostages. And that's not the first time they did that. They rejected a ceasefire that would have guaranteed the release of all the hostages before the Rafah invasion.
Has Hamas accepted that ceasefire?
Wait. You asked me a question. I'm going to answer your question. They also rejected a ceasefire that would have guaranteed the release of all hostages before the initial invasion of Gaza began.
Has Hamas accepted the ceasefire?
They accepted the ceasefire before the Rafah invasion began in Cairo.
That's not quite true, is it? That's actually not quite true. The reality is both sides haven't agreed to ceasefire because the terms are not actually acceptable to both sides, because Hamas don't want to return the hostages. They don't want an end of the war. They're using this for propaganda purposes. They have placed themselves within civilian organisations, within civilian buildings and homes and civilian population, because they know that therefore when the Israeli forces go in, Israel gets blamed for killing civilians. It's a deliberate policy by Hamas.
That's actually not true. Abu Ubaida, who is the Hamas spokesperson, he actually gave a speech saying that he officially agreed to the ceasefire, that Sinwar had agreed to the ceasefire that Israel proposed before the Rafah invasion. They did not want the Rafah invasion to happen because they knew that many innocent individuals were going to be killed, which is exactly what happened. And now we have Zionists like yourself who are moaning and groaning and crying about the fact that Hamas won't, release the hostages. Well, they already agreed to release the hostages, but Israel wanted to go in and do the invasion.
Sorry, Jackson. Okay. By the way, Zionist isn't an insult, and I'm not moaning and groaning and crying. It's very simple. If Hamas wanted to release the hostages, do you know what they could do? This is going to blow your mind. They could release the hostages. They could have just not taken them in the first place on October the 7th. They are able to free those hostages like that today, but they choose not to. Why not, if they're so concerned about the suffering of the Palestinian people in Gaza?
Well, you could report all the facts of these stories, but again, you choose to leave out the most important facts.
Which is...
And the facts are that Israel has rejected the ceasefire.
No, Jackson. No, Jackson, I asked you a simple question. Hamas can release the hostages today, but they choose not to. Why not?
Julia, I know you and the British establishment have completely abandon any commitment to international law, but I'd hope that you haven't abandoned your commitment to good manners.
No, but
The
I asked you.
point
I
is,
expect
the
you to
point,
answer the question I've asked you. Why doesn't Hamas just release the hostages now?
Well, I'm trying to answer your question, but you keep interrupting me. They agreed to release the hostages for a ceasefire, and then Israel wanted to go invade Rafah. So Israel declined to agree to the ceasefire proposal that they put forward.
At any point, there's no doubt at all, if all the hostages were released, the pressure on Israel would be considerable for the international community for them not to go in further to Rafah. Now, I would think that would be wrong, personally. But at the end of the day, Hamas made the decision to go into civilian areas on October the 7th to kill 1,200 people, to seize innocent people, hold them captive for this many days, hold them in civilian areas. Sometimes we know in hospitals they've been in. In this case, in the case of Noa Argamani, she was held in a private family home where she was kept in the dark, kept as a servant and not allowed to speak. That family included an Al Jazeera journalist. If Hamas are going to place their hostages with families, and families are going to keep those hostages and not, free them and report them to authorities, then those are legitimate targets, are they not?
Why do you keep repeating the name of Noa Argamani, but you always leave out the name of the American citizen who was killed by Israel? You also, I'm sure, never reported on the 3 Israeli hostages who were killed by IDF troops several months ago.
I did report on that, actually. I did report on that.
You did report on that. Did you
sorry
condemn the Israeli military?
I certainly condemned the IDF fighters who shot those men. Yes, it was an absolute travesty and a tragedy.
So why don't you condemn the actions taken by the IDF today, or a few days ago, which resulted in the deaths of those 3 hostages?
Why haven't you mentioned the Israeli commander who also lost his life, who some would argue, and I would certainly agree, was an absolute hero, leading an incredibly dangerous mission into the heart of Gaza to free 4 civilians held captive for 8 months? You don't care about his death, do you?
They were not 4 civilians. 2 of them were prisoners of war. They were military personnel, and another one was the chief of security at the Nova Music Festival. Those are not 4
terrible.
civilians.
A man in charge of security at a music festival.
Two of them were IDF soldiers. So no, they were not innocent civilians.
Well, again, Noa Argamani, she had served in the Israeli military, as every citizen of Israel is required to do.
But they're not innocent civilians. Those are prisoners of war. Those are
if you're
soldiers.
at a music festival and you're taken captive, you're a civilian.
If I was in the United States military and I was in an occupation, that would mean that if I was taken hostage, I would then be a prisoner of war.
It's interesting.
Yes, that's how it works.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to have to disagree on an awful lot of aspects of international law there. Do you think it was wrong for Israel to go in to try to free these people?
I think it's wrong that Israel is continuing this genocide, and they're doing so now by slaughtering 274 people. They injured 700, and they killed 3 of their own hostages. I'd hope you'd think that's wrong as well.
Well, I mean, if you believe everything that Hamas says,
considering you previously had condemned Israel for killing their own hostages, I would imagine that you do the same now.
No, I condemn the fighters who did that. I'm the annoying, frustrating Genya. We've only got about 10 seconds left. Listen, will you come back on the show very soon, Jackson Hinkle? Because I've got a feeling we've got a lot more to talk about here, but time has escaped us. Do come back on. You're talking to me live from Moscow in Russia. I'd love to hear about that as well. But we'll get back to you, I promise you.